وبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى وربطنا على قلوبهم إذ قاموا فقالوا ربنا رب السماوات والأرض لن ندعو من دونه إلها لقد قلنا إذا شططا هؤلاء قوم اتخذوا من دونه إلها لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا صدق الله العلي العظيم أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم على أشرف خلق الله محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على Muhammad. We are in the holy month of Rajab, as we announced last week, and we know that this is a very auspicious month. It is a month of ibadah, a month of devotion, a month of preparation for the holy month of Ramadan. And we have to seize every single opportunity that we have in this very busy life of ours in making sure that we are up to date in our spiritual progress, in our reflection on our life, our direction in life, and where we are going. Whether we like it or not, we are very consumed with society, and every single person is somehow occupied with things around them. Even little Hayduri, we were asking him to do something yesterday or the day before, and he said, I'm busy. Everyone is busy. Everyone has something to do. However, once you come to realize that your life is going very, very quick, I'm nearly 50 years of age, and I really remember my young, early teenage life like as if it was a few days ago. We're in the beginning of 2024. Just imagine how fast 2023 went and how fast 2024 will go. Unfortunately, in this race in our lives, some will win and some will lose. And we are always given reminder after reminder that we need to wake up to ourselves and seize the opportunity and make that progress that we need. And that's why every opportunity we have, especially when it comes to celebrating or commemorating our Imams, we need to reflect on their lives and see what we are able to take from it and implement it in our own lives. Otherwise, these rituals that we participate in will have absolutely no value for us. It will be as if, as the Quran says, كَالْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. It's like donkeys carrying books. What is a donkey going to do with books on its back, holding them? For us, as people who are aware of our direction in life, and when we pick up on things that we need to do, it's very important for us to put them into practice. In the case of Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, whose birthday is going to be in another few days, him being the 9th Imam, born on the 10th of Rajab in the year 195 after Hijrah, and he lived a very short life. He was martyred in the year 222 after Hijrah in Al-Kadhimain in Baghdad, which makes him 25 years of age only. And there are some very exceptional aspects to Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam that I will be sharing with you all tonight. One of them being that Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam, of course we know his father is Imam al-Ridha. We know that his kunya was Abu Ja'far. His mother, her name was Sabika, or also known as Khayzaran. And the life that he lived was full of turmoil. Many issues and problems occurred during the life of Imam Muhammad al-Jawad. One of them, of course, his father, Imam al-Ridha, living in exile, being forced to move all the way to the land of Khurasan. As you know, if you've been to Mashhadul Imam al-Ridha, it's very far away from the rest of the Imams, and of course the location in where majority of Shia were. Yes, during the time of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, even during the time of Imam al-Sajjad, but relatively during the time of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir onwards, the Shia, as a result of their persecution, them being persecuted, had to move to faraway lands. They moved to Iran predominantly, cities like Kashan and Ray, which is nowadays Tehran, and Qom and Khurasan and other places as well. And of course, that displacing of the Shia continued on for decades and centuries, all as a result of them being identified as the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. They had no guilt other than that. In the case of Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam, him being supposedly tempted to become the crown prince, taking wilayatul ahd and having to live in Khurasan, he wasn't there for a long period of time until his martyrdom in the year 200, I think 203 after Hijrah. This meant that Imam al-Jawad was going to be the first youngest Imam from all of the previous Imams. And this was something groundbreaking as far as what people were accustomed to. Previous Imams, of course, assumed the position of Imamah at a later age, but in the case of Imam al-Jawad, with the different views among historians, approximately around about 7 or 8 years of age. And there wasn't any Imam prior to him that had become an Imam at that particular age. Of course, we know as Shia Muslims that the Imam and Imamah, the position of Imamah, is an extension of the position of Nubuwah and prophethood, which we are not in any way surprised that there were prophets that had commenced their mission of prophecy of Nubuwah from a very young age, like in the case of Prophet Yahya and him being given al-hukma sabiya as a young child, or in the case of Prophet Isa alayhi salam when they were accusing Sayyidah Maryam alayhi salam of something, and then she pointed to this young infant baby still in his cradle, and they said, كيف نكلم من كان في المهدي صبيا? And Prophet Isa alayhi salam immediately answered and replied, قال إني عبد الله, etc., etc. One of the things that he did say was that God had delegated him to take this position of prophecy of Nubuwah from that young age. And therefore, with Imamah being an extension of Nubuwah, there is no difference whatsoever to that which God has given them. Our Imams, alayhimus salam, did not receive their knowledge through learning and education, but through being inspired, endowed upon them, given to them by Almighty God. The ilm that they have is present within them. It is ilm huduri. It is not acquired knowledge. It is not ilm husuli. And this is why we can see that in the cases of our Imams, all of them, even prior to their Imamah, they showed levels of knowledge that could not have been from something that they had learnt through books or a teacher. I did say that there was a lot of turmoil and dramas during this particular time, especially among the Abbasi rulers. And I've mentioned this a few times actually here in our Friday night program, that it's interesting, it's important to read about how chaotic these rulers were, how ruthless they were, how oppressive they were, and how they pretty much destroyed the direction of Islam in its true essence. And how what we can see in today's extremists, among some of the extremist radical groups who claim to be Muslims, have leftovers of that ruthlessness and that evil that was introduced by Bani Umayyah. An example for this is Harun al-Rashid al-Abbasi having children. One of them, his name was Muhammad al-Amin, and the other, his name was Abdullah al-Ma'mun. They were fighting over the kursi of Khilafah for a long time. Al-Amin had relocated, they had moved the capital of Khilafah from Baghdad to Khurasan, and Al-Ma'mun was responsible for killing his brother Al-Amin, and he relocated it back to Baghdad. He brought it back to Baghdad, which is why we can see if you've gone to Al-Kadhimain alayhim as-salam, you can see that there's Imam Musa al-Kadhim salamullahi alayh being buried in Baghdad, and then his son Imam al-Ridha all of a sudden in Mashhad in Khurasan, and then his grandson Imam Muhammad al-Jawad back in Baghdad, and of course that was where he was martyred, and that was also where he was buried. After that time, there was another move from Baghdad to another city that was considered to be a military fort. Because of how unstable and how hated Bani al-Abbas were, the Abbasid rulers were, they had to create a military fort, a askar, and this is why we can see in Samarra we have Imam al-Hadi and Imam Hassan al-Askari, Imamain al-Askariyain alayhim salam. And Askari basically means military. So with Imam al-Jawad and of course these events and political situations and things like that, one of the challenges that existed was Imam al-Jawad being of a young age, but prior to that, Imam Ali al-Ridha reached an old age and had yet been blessed with any child. And this was a strong criticism that people had against him. You claim to be an imam, you claim to be the part of the lineage of the 12 imams, but you don't even have a child. This was also when there was a lot of fitna happening, where different groups of Shia were falling away from mainstream tashayyu'. This was when the Fatahi group was expanding. The Ismailis were being very active. The Fatahis stopped with Abdullah al-Aftah and did not accept the imamah of Imam al-Kadhim. The Ismailis also stopped with Ismail, the son of Imam al-Sadiq, and did not accept the imamah of Imam al-Kadhim. And then we had a third group who stopped with the imamah of Imam al-Kadhim and claimed that he was al-Mahdi and that he went into ghaibah, and they rejected the imamah of Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam. They were called the Waqifis. Of course, alhamdulillah, the Waqifi sect is extinct. It died away very, very quickly, but we still have Ismailis existing until today, and they are Shia. If you remember last week, we spoke about the Zaydi sect as well. So Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam was 47 years of age and still had not had any child. And this, of course, became a strong weapon that those who had illness in their hearts and did not wish well for Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam used that as a weapon against the Imam and said that your claim, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that your claim for imamah is invalid because the imam has to have an offspring, and we have to know who the offspring was. This is why there are a few narrations mentioned where Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam, while being in Makkah al-Mukarramah, was eating, peeling and eating a banana and feeding it to Imam Muhammad al-Jawad. After the age of 47, he was blessed with a child, Muhammad al-Jawad, Aba Ja'far. And someone was there and asked him, where he says, دخلت على أبي الحسن الرضا عليه السلام وهو بمكة وهو يقشر موزا ويطعم أبا جعفر عليه السلام فقلت له جعلت فداك. This man by the same name of Yahya al-San'ani said to Imam al-Ridha, may I be sacrificed for you. هو المولود المبارك, is this that blessed child that you have been referring to, that it will come, that you are foretelling? And then the Imam said to him, Na'am ya Yahya. And please pay attention to the wordings that Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam uses. هذا المولود, this newborn, الذي لم يولد في الإسلام مثله, this is a newborn that there's no other newborn in Islam similar to him. Of course, we're going to have to exempt the birth of the Holy Prophet and the birth of Imam Ali and things like that. مولود أعظم بركة على شيعتنا منه. This is a newborn that carries the greatest blessings for our Shia. Question is, why would Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam depict and describe this newborn in such a way where he's giving it that much value that there is nobody born in Islam like him, and there's no blessing greater in Islam than him? Well, number one way of explaining this is people acknowledging Imam Muhammad al-Jawad will, of course, stay on that right path of believing in the 12 Imams. That's who we are, aren't we? We are 12 Shia, we are Ithna Asharis, right? So this is going to be the point of difference to where either people go astray and don't follow the 12 Imams, or stick with the true message of Islam, the true message of Ahlul Bayt and Tashayyu', and that is the 12 Imams, one after the other. Another reason that we can give as to why this is such a very important event, the birth of Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, is that each and every Imam proved the imamah of the next Imam by announcing who the next Imam was. Yani the next Imam's validity and status was given and announced by the previous Imam. For example, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, announcing that the next Imam is going to be Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, and so on for the rest of the Imams, except for Imam al-Ridha, where it was only until the birth of Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, where that birth was able to expel and remove every doubt and misconception that Imam al-Ridha is or is not the true legitimate eighth Imam. And this is, of course, exceptionally unique for Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam, which is exactly why what Imam al-Jawad did was strengthen the roots and foundations of the Shi'i madhab. Those insecure rulers, one after the other, tried as much as they could to humiliate the Imams, to put the Imams in certain situations where they thought that they would be able to expose the Imams in a bad way and prove their status or the status of their entourage, especially their scholars and ulama that they had. And this is why, in the case of Imam al-Jawad, there are numerous really interesting stories that speak about his different debates and discussions and answers to questions that were put forward to him in the palace of Al-Ma'mun, trying to embarrass him, but انقلب السحر على الساحر, but it foiled, and instead of the Imam being somehow embarrassed, everyone else was embarrassed. People were being, for example, criticized and saying, oh, how are you supposed to be following a young child who is an Imam? You know, what sense does that make? And this is where we can see that the Imam came out with that advanced, expanded knowledge that could only be a miracle in itself, because it would be impossible for someone to have that much depth in knowledge unless it was given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is also why, interesting, that Al-Ma'mun married his daughter off to Imam al-Jawad. al-Fadl, her name was. And of course, she was also responsible for the poisoning of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam as well. This is a long hadith. I'm going to share snippets of it, parts of it, right? Where Al-Ma'mun had made a nice majlis, a nice gathering, inviting all of his entourage and his scholars and everyone else. The most distinguished of these scholars was someone by the name of Yahya ibn Aktham. And of course, he was having a interaction with the Imam, and he wanted to say things to the Imam to instigate him, to aggravate the Imam, but to also say something that will incriminate the Imam, that the Imam is going to say something that's going to get him in trouble. But what we can see, of course, because everyone at that time, they loved the Khulafa, you know, they didn't allow anyone to speak negative of the Khulafa. So this person, Yahya ibn Aktham, thought it would be a wonderful opportunity, right, to get the Imam in trouble. So that's why he said in this debate, let me read parts of it, for example. يا ابن رسول الله ما تقول يا ابن رسول الله في الخبر الذي روي. What do you say, O son of Messenger of God, about the narration that mentions that nazala Jibra'il, that Jibra'il came down, alayhi salam, ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, upon the Holy Prophet, وَقَالَ يَا مُحَمَّدْ اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُقْرِئُكَ السَّلَامِ, God conveys his greetings to you, وَيَقُولُ لَكَ, and says to you, سَلْ أَبَا بَكْرٍ, ask Abu Bakr, هَلْ هُوَ راضٍ عَنِّي, is Abu Bakr pleased with me? Yani Allah is asking the Prophet to ask Abu Bakr, is Abu Bakr pleased with God? Is Abu Bakr happy with Allah? هل هو راض عني فإني عنه راضي, because God is saying, I am happy and pleased with Abu Bakr. Of course, what's the Imam going to say if he says, what's this fahfata that you're saying? What's this? What's that? He's going to get in trouble, you know? And this was the answer that Imam al-Jawad gave. فقال أبو جعفر لست بمنكري فضل أبي بكر, I don't deny, reject the merit of Abu Bakr. لكن يجب على صاحب هذا الخبر, however, it is necessary for the person who narrated this narration أن يأخذ مثال الخبر, to take the example of the narration الذي قاله رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في حجة الوداع, that the Holy Message had mentioned in the last Hajj pilgrimage. قد كثرت علي الكذابة, that there are going to be a lot of people who falsely make lies and attribute falsehood to me. وستكثر, and there are going to be many of these people who claim and attribute lies to the prophets. فمن كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار, and whoever intentionally attributes a lie to me, they will have their place in hellfire. And then the Imam continues on in explaining and saying all of the ways in how he does not agree with this kind of content that this person is narrating. So he said, why don't you look at the verse in the Holy Quran that God says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانِ, we have created mankind, وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ, and we know what is being whispered in your heart. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ, and we are closer to you. Yani God is closer to us than our own jugular vein. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Yani again, slap in the face. Why would God want to ask Abu Bakr if Abu Bakr is happy with God, if God already knows what is ma tuwaswisu bihi nafsuh, what this any person, any human being is thinking of in their hearts, and God is closer to us in our jugular closer than our jugular veins. So obviously, God doesn't need to ask you what you think about me, because God already knows what's happening in your hearts. So therefore, this hadith goes against the clear verse of the Holy Quran. And as Imam al-Jawad says, anything that is against the Holy Quran, you completely reject. And that's why he says, هذا مستحيل في العقول. This hadith that you just mentioned is absolutely impossible. Then Yahya ibn Aktham says, okay, what do you think about the case of Abu Bakr and Umar in this earth, alike Jibreel and Mikael in the heavens? And then Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam answers. Then he says, what do you think about them being the masters of the kuhul of Ahl al-Jannah? What does kuhul mean? Anyone knows? Yes, mister. Thank you. That's Abu Bakr. You know how Hassan wal Hussein alayhim salam Sayyiday shunu? Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. What shabab mean, ya shabab? Youth. Right? Is that what you were going to say, Yusuf? Why are you hiding behind the pillar? Are you scared? So Hassan wal Hussein alayhim salam are the masters of the youth of heaven. They wanted to idhash other people, and they said that these two people are the masters of the elderly of heaven. And then the Imam answers, says, Yaba, look, there's no elderly in heaven. Everyone's going to be young. Everyone's going to be young. What are you talking about? And then he says that another thing, another case of what do you think about the day of judgment, where everyone will be illuminated by the nur of Umar. Everyone will be illuminated by the nur of Umar. And then Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam answers. It's a long hadith. I want to get to something interesting as well. And I don't want to take much of time. I do strongly advise you, my brothers and sisters, to look into these interesting debates. I'm an anti-debater. I don't like debating, right? I don't think in a lot of cases debating is fruitful. You know, the speaker's corner and those famous people who do a lot of debating, they probably are doing a little bit of good. But for us, it's something deeper than that. You all know the hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam where he says, I've never argued with an ignorant person and won. And I've never argued with an intelligent person and lost. So when you're arguing with someone ignorant, you're never going to win the argument, right? So Kitab al-Ihtijaj by Al-Tabarsi is a very good, interesting book that speaks about the debates that our Imams alayhim salam had, and it is available in English as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Of course, we also know the many narrations from Ahlul Bayt, especially from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, where he gives the clear, distinctive characteristics of who people needed to be guided by, and they are, of course, Ahlul Bayt from Imam Ali onwards. Man sarrahu ay yahya hayati, whoever wants to live like me, yani the Prophet is saying, whoever wants to live like me, وَيَمُوتَ مِيتَتِي, and die like me, وَيَدْخُلَ الْجَنَّةِ وَيَدْخُلَ جَنَّةَ عَدْنٍ, and enter into the paradise, manzili, in my status, وَيُمْسِكُ قَضِيبًا غَرَسَهُ رَبِّي, and hold onto that plant that has been planted by my Lord Azza wa Jal, فَلْيَتَوَلَّى Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, then follow Imam Ali. You want to live like the Prophet and die like the Prophet? You follow Ali ibn Abi Talib. وَلْيَأْتَمَّ, and this is important as well, and وَلْيَأْتَمَّ, and you need to follow behind al-awsiya, the successors, min wuldihi, from his children, فَإِنَّهُمْ عِتْرَتِي خُلِقُوا مِنْ طِينَتِي, etc., etc. Beautiful hadith from the Holy Prophets. That narration that we said with Yahya ibn Aktham was a theological discussion, ideological discussion between the Imam and him. Then there is that famous jurisprudential fiqhi discussion that happened as well in regards to a person. He asked the Imam, what do you think about a person in the state of ihram having hunted? Who's heard that hadith before, that story? What do you say about a person who's in the state of ihram? What's the state of ihram, Ya Hussein? Muntadhar. You don't know? What is it? Hajj. Hajj or Umrah. Yes, that's right. Thank you. When you wear those ihram clothes, those white clothes. No one's been to Hajj here? Other than Sayyid Ali, of course. Umrah? Good. Some good Umrah people. Alhamdulillah. So, the Imam alayhi salam answers. He's trying to corner the Imam, trying to embarrass the Imam. Okay, tell me, what's the state of, what do you think about someone? What's the situation of someone who hunts while they are in the state of ihram? Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam gives up to 16 different tafri'at and divisions and counter questions from this one simple question. He says, okay, in your question, what state was this person who was in ihram in? في حل أو حرم عالما كان المحرم أم جاهلا قتله عمدا أو خطأ. Did he kill it by mistake or did he kill it intentionally? Did he know? Did he not know? حرا كان أم عبدا, was he a free man or was he a slave? صغيرا كان أو كبيرا, was he a child underage or was he a mature person? مبتدئا بالقتل أو معيدا, was he the one who offensively went and killed or was he defending himself? من ذوات الطير أم من غيرها, was it a bird, a flying animal, or was it something else? من صغار الصيد, was it a small animal? أم كان أم من كباره, or was it a large animal? مصرا على ما فعل أم نادما, was he persistent in what it is that he did, or was he regretful and remorseful for what he did? في الليل كان قتله للصيد أم نهاره, was it in the night time or was it during the day? محرما كان بالعمرة, was he doing umrah or was it while he was doing his hajj? فتحير يحيى ابن أكثم, this guy was what do they say? Gobble smacked? What do they say? Gobsmacked? Gobble? Did not know what to say. In وَبَانَ فِي وَجْهِهِ الْعَجَزِ, and his reaction, it was obvious from his reaction that he was incapable of understanding and comprehending all of this. وَتَلَجْلَجَ, and he started stuttering. حَتَّى عَرِفَ أَهْلُ الْمَجْلِسِ أَمْرَهُ, until everyone in that gathering knew what Yahya ibn Aktham was feeling and how embarrassed he was, instead of this young Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam. I wanted to share one hadith from the Imam for us to reflect and ponder on and learn from, making sure that we look at the importance of always making sure that our outside is the same as our inside. That what you do in public is exactly the same as how you are and what you do in private. I mentioned this hadith in my khutbah today in Salatul Jum'ah, and I think it's very, very important. The Imam alayhi salam, knowing that one of the big problems that we have in society is two-faced people. How you behave here in the musalla, at home, and at school, and at work, with your friends, religious friends or non-religious friends. Is it the same or is it different? Do you act like an angel in front of your parents, but when you're away, you do something completely different? Imam alayhi salam, he says, لا تكن وليا لله في العلانية. Do not be a saint of God in public. Everyone's going to say, wow, mashallah, look at this Rida, what a beautiful person, so much akhlaq. He's a saint, he's an angel. لا تكن وليا لله في العلانية وعدوا نستجير بالله وعدوا له, and God's enemy في السر, in private, when you're all alone, becoming God's enemy in what it is that you do. This is a wake-up call for all of us to remember that we need to be consistent in who we are and how we are, in not becoming like chameleons, camouflaging ourselves when needed on this side or on that side. And it's very interesting that a hypocrite will always be exposed, that people can easily pick up on a two-faced person. Eid Mubarak to you all on this auspicious occasion that we will be celebrating the birthday anniversary of our 9th Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam. رزقنا الله وإياكم زيارته في الدنيا، زيارة الإمام الكاظمين عليهم السلام في الدنيا، وشفاعته في الآخرة. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلق الله محمد وآله الطاهرين.